today's episode, Vulnerability as Masterpiece, Trials of Absence, Echoes of Promise, and Shadows of Light in Unbroken Promise. I'm your host, Sydney Brown, chapters 14 to 18. Thank you, everyone, and I would like to say, proudly, welcome back to Unbroken Voices. I'm Sydney Brown, and today we continue the journey through Unbroken Promise with chapters 14 through 18. These pages take us into the full bloom of vulnerability as a masterpiece, the trial of the heart when love steps away, the quiet canvas of absence, the echoes of promise reaching across distance, and the dance between shadows and light when the world pushes back. It's where the artist learns that openness itself can be the greatest work of art. We'll read longer passages, straight from the book, so you can feel every layer. If you're in a season of distance, trial, or quiet renewal, these chapters were written for exactly where you are. Let's begin with chapter 14. Welcome to Chapter 14, Vulnerability as Masterpiece, when openness becomes the truest art. The ocean wind woke me before dawn at the coastal residency. My palette glowed with pigments I had once feared. Viridian green for renewal, cadmium yellow for courage, alizarin crimson for the heart's wounds. Today I pressed oil thin, letting every brush stroke reveal its own quiver. Inside the converted barn studio, I hosted my first open workshop. With every shared confession, the room pulsed with collective vulnerability. A letter arrived that afternoon from the critic who once dismissed my tenderness. His words struck me like sunlight through storm clouds. Proof that honesty can pierce even the hardest shells. In the evenings, I labored on a new centerpiece titled Open Vessel. I mixed my tears with linseed oil. I painted two hands cupping a shattered shell from which light poured. One afternoon, Isabel arrived with her notebook of poems. She whispered, "Your vulnerability is the masterpiece you were always meant to create." In her words, I felt the final layer of doubt peel away. On the last night, I realized then that vulnerability is not a weakness to hide. It is the masterpiece that binds us, the raw bridge across every heart. Let's take a moment to reflect. Vulnerability as masterpiece. That phrase changes everything. It's not about being perfect. It's about letting the cracks show so light can pour through. If you've ever felt exposed for being honest, this chapter reminds you that exposure is the art. Chapter 15, Trial of the Heart. When love steps away and absence tests everything. I'm going to read an excerpt. This morning, Isabel slipped away before dawn's hush, her suitcase whispering across the hard wood floor. When the cab rounded the corner, emptiness settled behind my ribs, like a stone I had not known I carried. In the studio, every brush and palette knife looked the same without her beside me. I tried to channel my restlessness into canvas, but each stroke felt jagged and hesitant. Late afternoon brought a text from Isabel. Even miles away, her creativity tethered us. That night, I surrendered to the ache by painting Half-Light, two silhouettes facing each other across a void. I threaded a sliver of gold between them, thin, quivering, yet unbroken. Before sleep claimed me, I wrote in my journal, "Love isn't measured by proximity, but by the courage to endure absence." Let's take a moment to reflect. The trial of the heart isn't loud. It's that quiet stone of emptiness. Yet even in absence, a thin gold thread holds. This chapter is for anyone learning that distance doesn't break the promise. It reveals its strength. Let's take a little break before we get into chapter 16 of Unbroken Promise. Chapter 16, Canvas of Absence, Turning Emptiness into Presence. Here is another excerpt, introspective, building to quiet purpose. I stepped into the studio long before daylight. Empty walls stretched out before me. Dust motes drifted. In that hush, I realized how tightly I had intertwined my art with her presence. Now severed, it left me unmoored. Desperate for direction, I wandered among my earlier works. It struck me that absence was not simply a void. It was a space pregnant with possibility. Late in the afternoon, a slender envelope arrived. Inside lay a folded poem. Imagine the echo of our mornings, how solitude sculpts you new shapes. That evening, I primed a fresh canvas and began with 2 coffee cups, one half full, steam curling, the other empty. By midnight, the piece stood complete, a testament to love's endurance, even in solitude. In my journal, I penned, "Solitude is not erasure, but a kind of portrait where absence becomes presence." Absence as canvas. What a beautiful reframe. When someone is gone, the empty space becomes the place where new shapes form. If you're painting through absence right now, this chapter shows you're already creating something lasting. Now, let's get into chapter 17, Echoes of Promise. Building bridges across distance. Expansive, hopeful delivery. I arrived at the coastal residency before sunrise. The salt air threaded through my lungs. I set a blank canvas before me, 2 images intertwined, a bridge arching from each shore. Fellow residents drifted in. An elderly ceramicist commented, "Bridges hold more weight in our hearts than in stone." I mixed cerulean and rose madder. By dusk, convergent horizon stood complete, twin spans bound by the same promise. Late that evening, a message arrived. Our community show had been invited to exhibit in London, Paris, and Tokyo. I dialed Isabel's number. Then we'll build bridges together, she answered. In that moment, the distance folded into itself, and I knew our promise would echo far beyond the horizon. Promises that echo across oceans. Distance doesn't weaken the bridge, it gives it room to stretch. This chapter is a reminder that the promise you're holding can reach farther than you think. Here's the final chapter for today. Let's take a break and listen to a little music before we start. Chapter 18. Chapter 18, Shadows and Light. When the world pushes back, yet light still wins. Tense, then resolving warmth. The morning mail arrived heavy with unease. An essay revisiting my sentimentality, accusing my work of trading raw emotion for easy applause. By dusk, whispers had spread. Isolation settled into my chest like a dense fog. Just as panic began to twist my thoughts into retreat, Isabel appeared. Without a word, she threaded her fingers through mine. Opening night arrived. As I stepped forward, Isabel raised her hand. When the speech ended, applause rippled. In that moment, I understood that shadows and light are inseparable. As Isabel squeezed my hand and leaned in to whisper, "You belong here," I felt the weight of every harsh word lift. In the interplay of doubt and devotion, I discovered art's deepest truth. Our brightest masterpieces are forged when we embrace both fear and faith. Let's take another moment to reflect on what was read. Shadows and light, never one without the other. Criticism may come, but so does the hand that reminds you that you belong. These chapters show that even when the world dims the canvas, the promise keeps glowing. Come, grab yourselves a copy of my book, Unbroken Promise, that is available on Amazon, Kindle, free with unlimited, or paperback. Let these chapters meet you right where you are. You can listen to me on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, audio only, Podbean, Spotify, and Amazon Music /Audible. Search Unbroken Voices or follow at Unbroken Promise 2 for every new episode and direct links. Share on X at Unbroken Promise 2. Which moment from these chapters stayed with you most? Your stories keep this conversation alive. I want to say thanks for walking these open, resilient pages with me. Next time, we'll reach the forgiveness collage, storms of the self, and restoring grace. Your vulnerability, your absence, your echoes, they're all becoming masterpieces. Keep listening to the light. I'm Sydney Brown. Take care of your brave heart.